school funding became one of the key battlegrounds during the general election campaign. It was mainly driven by parents and teachers holding protests across the capital, and they're continuing to do that. Our education reporter Mark Ashdown is with me, and this was a tough one on the doorstep.
Yes, absolutely. In their post-election debrief, Conservative backbenchers have been feeding back this was the most difficult policy area to explain to voters. On the one hand, the government was saying we're putting record levels of investment into schools, which is true, mainly because there's more pupils than ever. On the other hand, we had heads saying we're taking on extra costs, we can't balance the books. Then, of course, there was this, a website which popped up, laying bare, really, how much schools were going to lose. It was quite simple. You could put in your area, your postcode. I've chosen Tower Hamlets here as an example. It was one of the areas expected to be hardest hit. You could then put in your exact school and find out in a random example, as I've done here, look, this school was going to lose £500,000 over the next 5 years, £800 per pupil. Now that equates to 13 teachers. No wonder it was a hard sell.
And we know that protests are still going on, including one today.
Yes, these sort of picnic protests, as they were dubbed, at school gates in local parks. They've carried on, driven by parents. This one today was entitled SOS, Save Our Schools, delivering a petition to Downing Street school children. This one, though, had celebrity backing as well, Steve Coogan. Now, he's a prominent Labour supporter. Of course, Labour was promising to invest more money into schools, Jeremy Corbyn, so the pressure really was intensifying, and he's carrying on the government.
Okay, for now, Mark, we'll leave it there. But let's bring in now Joe Yurky from North London, who helped organise the campaign group Fair Funding for All Schools. And good evening to you, Joe. If the government has said that no school will lose out on funding, why do parents like yourself still feel the need to protest?
Well, one of the things that's really annoying parents, actually, is the government's continued use of these meaningless sound bites rather than setting out the detail of their spending plans about how they're going to solve this funding crisis. The fact is that schools are already losing out. The Institute of Fiscal Studies and the National Audit Office have both said that our schools are facing the largest cuts for decades. The Public Accounts Committee has called the government deluded. Per pupil funding is going down. Conservative MPs themselves know this. As you've mentioned, this was a toxic issue for them on the doorstep. One poll reported 870,000 voters changed their vote on the basis of school funding alone. We intend to keep up the pressure. We intend to make sure this remains a toxic issue until they address the funding of our schools. And you've seen the protest today, thousands of messages from children across the country delivered to Downing Street. And on the 16th of July, parents will be descending on Parliament Square for a mass picnic protest to keep up the pressure and show we're not going anywhere until they sort this problem out.
Clearly, this issue of money very, very pressing for parents like yourselves. Can you give us any examples of the impact you've already seen?
Yes, well, we're contacted by parents from across the country who are concerned. We're parents, we're using the schools, so we can see the reality on the ground of what's happening. And while the government is busy doing nothing, cuts are being made now, and they will continue to be cut. So we hear from parents who are unhappy that their teaching assistants are going, that their support staff that they relied on and that they valued the work that they were doing are going, that the A-level offers or the curriculum offer generally is reducing. Parents who are unhappy that their children can't study the subjects that they wanted to study. Parents, of course, are being asked to put their hands in their pockets and find money at a time when many parents don't have spare money. We're also unhappy that class sizes are increasing. This really is a desperate situation, and parents are deeply unhappy about it. And that's why we're going to continue protesting. You're going to continue seeing this kind of action of parents who don't normally get involved in this kind of thing and aren't the sort of usual suspects or the type of people who would wish to be doing this kind of thing. But we're doing it because we're desperate and because we're deeply concerned. And that's why we'll be back in Parliament Square on the 16th of July for a mass picnic protest.
Okay, Joe Yurky, many thanks for joining us this evening. Mark is still here, and you were listening to that. Very passionate words there from Joe. Is this pressure from parents making a difference?
Well, I think it already has. I mean, the government will say they are doing something, and the Conservative manifesto promised £4 billion extra for schools. I know that Justine Green, the Education Secretary, has been pushing for more. She feels another £1 billion at least is needed. Now, she's been knocking on a door which previously has been closed. There's a sense it could open now, but the timing is crucial here. I'm told possibly not to expect anything before the school holidays in a few weeks. But for heads and parents, as we heard there, they feel the clock is ticking. Schools are running on empty. They need some answers on the money soon.
Okay, Mark, thanks very much. Our education reporter, Mark Ashdown.